And we're back with our guest today, Amie Ichikawa. She is an ambassador at Independent Women and Independent Women's Voice. She is one of the founders of Woman to Woman, a nonprofit organization providing reentry services, parole hearing prep, and advocacy for the safety and dignity of incarcerated women in California. In partnership with Independent Women, as an ambassador, she's blowing the whistle on how behind bars incarcerated women are sitting ducks, vulnerable to violence at the hands of biological males who enter into prisons identifying as transgender women. I have been looking forward to this show. Thank you so much for joining me on Patriot Radio today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Amie, you're so courageous, and I want to honor that before the Lord. You are so courageous, saying yes to go into a subject and a situation where I know you have received a lot of backlash. If you've looked at my Wikipedia page, you know that we share that in common potentially. So I would like to start by just saying that with these subjects we're going to talk about today, you are not talking about this as speculation. You are talking about this from hard fact. And this is going to challenge a lot of people, and people need to have an open heart and an open mind to what they're about to hear today, that something needs to shift in this arena. So if you could tell a little bit about your story and a little bit about what you experienced and also what we need to do about it.
Well, I am formerly incarcerated. I did spend 5 years in the largest women's prison in the state of California. I was, how old was I? 24 years old. I started a little late. I got caught up. My story starts like many other women's stories. There was this guy, just took a lot of wrong turns, had a very toxic, negative relationship, and I made some really poor decisions. And I ended up with a 5-year sentence. And during that time, I wasn't housed, but there was an individual who was transferred into our prison, who's a biological male, who's a serial rapist, who committed 2 rapes in the same county as the prison fits in. These were very violent crimes. There was torture involved. This changed the entire culture within the facility. Women were terrified. They felt abandoned by the governor. People were just crying, calling home. People didn't believe us. Even my own parents thought that I was losing my mind, because it was so unbelievable that the state would house a serial rapist inside of the women's prison, directly in women's general population.
That is crazy. Now,
it is.
So they're having more rights than the ladies that are incarcerated. If you could kind of expand on that, give some details here.
There's a lot of policies, and these are based on federal guidelines in the Prison Rape Elimination Act. And within these policies and guidelines, they are given rights that nobody's ever experienced in the carceral system. They're able to select who they live with, where they live, what jobs they want. They can say that they don't feel safe with certain individuals in their cells. They can displace entire rooms full of people because they want to live alone. And, in women's prisons, a lot of them have different settings. It's not like what you see on TV. Central California women's facilities have 8-person cells. So these individuals have the right to walk in and say, I like this room, but I'm scared of everybody in here. And every other person inside will be displaced. Unless, of course, there's somebody of their liking that they want to keep in there, they can keep that individual in there. The medical is completely unbelievable. They have access to purely cosmetic procedures, breast implants, full body laser hair removal, vaginoplasties. These are all on the taxpayer dollars. I think in 2024 or 2023, California spent $4 million on breast implants. One individual just actually got their breast implants enlarged and got a facelift. Women in prison can't get a tooth fixed unless it's the 2 front teeth, because it's considered cosmetic otherwise. If you have slip discs and you need a breast reduction because your back is breaking, you're going to have to appeal and appeal and appeal because you will be denied based on the fact that this is somehow cosmetic, but it's not if you're trans identified.
I am absolutely. I thought I've heard, and I've heard some of the issues in the prison system in Washington State as a state legislator, but
Oh,
this is absolutely shocking. So they have access. I want to go back to something. So you have convicted rapists who have access to women as biological males. Are these males that have not undergone transition fully? In other words, they have working equipment?
absolutely. There's no requirement to be on hormone replacement to even want to get reassignment surgery. So these are fully intact males with working pipes that they use, whether you like it or not. Uh, and most of them, I don't want to say most, but a large percentage of these individuals do have long histories of violence against women, sex crimes, crimes against children. Um, and there's nowhere else to house them safely. So this isn't the women's responsibility, but somehow it is now.
So, and many of these women that have been incarcerated obviously have backgrounds. They've suffered abuse themselves, sexual abuse, physical abuse themselves in their childhood. Didn't have a father, what have you. And so you're putting them now in another potentially abusive situation. Now, you said that they use their equipment. I don't want you to get too graphic here, but are you saying that they are enabled to have sexual relations in prison, even though they are convicted rapists?
They did install condom dispensers in the women's prisons in California 3 years ago, about a year or so after this law was being implemented. It was a law statewide that our attorney general had written when he was an assemblyman, and this was supposed to be implemented in every prison by 2019. But what was the purpose by 2019? But what was the purpose of doing that in a women's prison? We don't need that, obviously. But in the midst of the forced integration and all the staff sexual misconduct, they thought it was a great idea to go ahead and put the condom dispensers in with rainbow condoms and flavored dental dams. So this kind of seemed like a green light for sexual activity, whether it was consensual or not, even though there really is no consent when you're in custody.
This is demonic is what this is. I'm just going to be really blunt here. Okay, so your experience, you're incarcerated. What are some of the things you saw that people need to hear about and you need to call attention to and raise the red flag on?
Well, one of the most important things is that the cultures between men and women's prisons is completely different. There are no similarities. We are not separated by security level, by gang affiliation, by regional, arrest history or anything like that. Men are separated for very many reasons, all for security purposes. They're taking men off of death row and placing them directly into women's general population with security levels 1 through 4. So from shoplifters to murderers, you're putting men from death row, of which there is no security equivalent in a women's facility. They're coming from prisons with armed guards that have, mini 14s in every housing unit. And our women's prison has one gun in one tower. So this is a danger to the population inside, the population outside. I don't even think that's legal.
I don't think it is either.
I don't think you're not supposed to house people that are serving life sentences in prisons that don't have electric fences. And the person who transferred in when I was incarcerated is currently in a medium security, non-electric fence having prison. And this is somebody who's serving life without for a double rape and torture. This is predator prioritization at its best. The West Coast is really carrying the torch on this. There's, I don't think America is ready for this.
Well, how? Okay, so I mean, the secondary and tertiary effects of this we'll get into that here in a second. But how they have to do in every state that I know of, they have to do an individual assessment of every inmate, right? And part of that assessment is their propensity for violent behavior and their propensity for recidivism. So if they're doing that assessment in a men's prison, and it would mean something totally different, and yet in a women's prison, it doesn't seem to be carrying over, I would think that would be a violation of the law, because there are policies and laws that require those assessments to be done, and for the housing and security arrangements and health and everything else to be taken into consideration and factored into the placement of those inmates. How are they getting around that?
The trans identity takes priority over all of that. They have created an untouchable class of people that are superior in every sense. The regulations don't apply to them. The staff are all afraid of the high-powered law firms that accompany them when they transfer in. It's creating a supremacy situation. It's not healthy, and I'm very, convinced that this is what's to come if we don't stop it in the prison system. They're creating this untouchable, victim class that they can wield control over the rest of the population with,
and cause further harm to inmates that are going to have to deal with that when they eventually get out. We're going to go ahead and forego the commercials and keep talking about this, because this is absolutely important that everybody is hearing this and watching this. So as a Christian, obviously this goes against everything that the scripture says. So how did you deal with that as a Christian? And what else did you see that was decidedly anti-Christian in the system?
Well, I mean, I had a real serious come to Jesus moment in 2019 when women I don't even know started calling me and writing me, and they were terrified. Old ladies, little ladies, big ladies, tall ladies, they were all devastated, saying, "What are we going to do?" I mean, there were seasoned, lieutenants and sergeants that were crying with them in front of their units, saying, "We're sorry, we've failed you." Most, people in the department didn't think that this was going to happen because it sounded so insane. So they weren't really expecting this to ever be implemented, but it was, and it's devastating because nobody knows. Nobody remembers the prisoners, especially the women. There's got to be a cultural shift, especially in the body of Christ, because we have to act as if we're inside and a part of our own body is being injured, because it is. There's women who have stood firm on their Christian conservative values, and they've lost their parole dates. They've lost everything. They get retaliated against. They're in danger. The women who speak out, I am very afraid for, and especially in California, they're afraid to speak out entirely because the other NGOs will go in there and tell them all kinds of lies and say your commutations are being overlooked because of your allegations of transphobia and your transphobic associations, aka me. They're doing everything they can to shut them up, and it's a violation of their right to free speech. They're allowed to talk still, even though they're incarcerated. But this is definitely like you said, this is demonic. This is the darkest thing a lot of dark stuff happens in prison. There's a lot of medical testing. There's a lot of socioeconomic experimentation, but this is by far the worst.
Well, this is psychological experimentation as well. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. And what also is very interesting about this is that those folks coming out of an abusive background, they've already experienced this kind of manipulation, especially if they came out of human trafficking, this kind of manipulation, leveraging. So they're like, well, I guess the whole world is like this. And they just give up. This is horrible. Yeah.
There's so much complex PTSD. The symptoms are kind of blanketed over the entire population, because the ACLU did a study in the 90s that said 92% of incarcerated women in California have been battered or beaten. But in my personal experience, every woman in there, 100%, has been sexually abused, financially abused, physically abused. There isn't anybody that I met in my 5-year term that wasn't a survivor.
Now you said there medical testing. I wanna just grab onto that for a second. Is there other experimentation other than potentially psychological that is going on in the prison system in California?
Uh, they're prescribing Ozempic. I'm sorry, they're prescribing all of the, you know, those drugs, those types of drugs to everybody. So many people are on GLPs. Uh, they're also giving out testosterone like candy. If you're even slightly, tomboyish or male presenting, they'll ask you, "Don't you want to get on testosterone? Don't you want to get on T?" And I strongly believe this is just extended California eugenics. It never stopped. It never stopped. Women, if they're getting testosterone shots, have to get them administered by the nurses. And if they don't go, if they miss a shot, they get a write up. Men who are transitioning and get estrogen get a month's supply and they get to just walk away from the window, and there's no requirement to even take the pills. Um,
Wow.
what other there's there's
Well,
I mean there was just
we,
a few years ago that they stopped the forced sterilization. There were hundreds of women who were unknowingly being getting full hysterectomies and they didn't even know. It's California is a dark place. Something happened a long time ago, and I don't know what kind of portal they opened, but it's very bad. The roots are very deep. It's bad.
well, in the last 5 minutes we got, I want to go into that. What you just kind of tugged on that thread. Does the DOJ know about this stuff, and is the DOJ investigating the California prison system?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Or we'll leave it at
can't
that.
say a
That's
whole
fine. It's
lot,
an
but
ongoing, yeah. Because I was going to make sure that they saw this episode. Praise the Lord. So shifting gears a little bit, we deal with satanic ritual abuse survivors here. Some people that have been, trafficked. And so some of what you said earlier about, well, because of your associations, blaming somebody, those are hallmarks of a little bit of indoctrination into or opening the door to the occult. Is that happening in the California prison system?
yes. Yes, it is inside and out because I know there is some real witchery going on in some of the organizations that are heavily funded and very powerful within the Department of Correction. They have a very strong influence amongst the department as well as the population of incarcerated folks. And it's heavy.
So what does that look like without getting into the names? What does that look like?
Uh, they have so much money and they'll have these great retreats and all you have to do is read the script and do what they tell you and you'll get a salary and you'll be happy and you're owned. Um, they're buying people. They're buying people that are going to help them bring in more people so that they can create this humongous Marxist victim pool that just gets bigger and bigger with every, man-made crisis that they socially design.
Are they being asked to pledge allegiance to something? Are they being asked to be part of rituals? I mean, what is this? What does this look like in detail? Yeah.
I think there's a big push to separate them from the Lord. People are laughed at when they want to say grace before dinner. Even inside, their professors want them to write papers about the occult, and the occult is only the occult because it goes against Judeo-Christian normative values. I have lifers who are some of my most trusted friends that are super strong, calling me crying, saying, "I want to drop out of college because I don't know. They're making me feel stupid for loving Jesus." They they're getting hit from every angle with the indoctrination process. There's no respite.
Wow. So, what would be your message today to policymakers that might be watching, pastors that might be watching Patriot Radio on Patriot.tv or listening across the whole Pacific Northwest?
I would implore them to please check in with their local women's prisons. If you don't have a ministry, please start one. The women are desperate. They need partnership. They need prayer. They just need to know that someone cares. And when people show up for them, it scares the department. There is no opposition to the efforts that are negative inside. I'm just one person, you know. They need to have pastors come in and want to, you know, have special church services again. It's not like it was when I was inside. It's not like that at all. The biggest celebration is pride inside now. It's been taken over, and they really need some light.
Amie, this is an incredible interview. I'm shocked. I shouldn't be, probably, but some of the stuff that I heard today is new to me. And I want to thank you for highlighting it, bringing attention to it, and for your courage standing in a huge headwind, but standing on the rock of Jesus Christ.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the support.
Absolutely. So please stay on the line afterwards. I'm going to talk to you about a couple other things, and we're going to be continuing praying for you. Keep up the fight. Amie Ichikawa, she is an ambassador for several organizations, but particularly independent women, and just bringing a spotlight to this. I don't know if any of you were as outraged as I was hearing some of this stuff, but here's what you can do. I want you to take this episode. I want you to share it with your local policymaker, whoever that is in the Pacific Northwest or around the country. Share it with your policymaker and say, did you know this is happening inside the prison system? And are you investigating this? And what are you doing at the state and the local level to address this stuff? This is crazy. I suspect in conservative states, in solid red states, this is happening as well. And we need to stand up now and call attention to this. This is Matt Shea. Thank you for joining me on Patriot Radio today. May God bless all of you. He is making this generation the greatest one. The awakening is here. So stand up. Keep up the fight.